Hi, welcome to the second part of the method and drills videos, which is part of the theory of teaching and methodology series. In the first video, I talked about how we can progress in a lesson and why drilling is part of that progression. And now I'm going to talk about which types of drilling there are and how you can apply certain characteristics to all kinds of drilling to actually achieve different goals with one and the same drill. In the end, you can name it whatever you want: games, drills, sparring, micro sparring, mini sparring, lock flows, flow rolling, slow rolling, full on rolling, I don't know. All these things are just methods to make people better at grappling. To either develop certain skills or techniques so that by the end of the lesson they are better than they were before the lesson, like I talked about in the last video, going through different stages of competence. So through the lesson, you have usually the drilling part in the middle of the lesson, which you spend most of the time on. Maybe at the beginning of a training cycle, you have more time to spend on instruction to actually get people to know new things, so acquire new knowledge. In the middle of the training cycle, you usually have lots of drilling to actually start applying the new knowledge to a situation that becomes more and more complex and difficult, with feedback. And then you have at the end rolling or sparring. Especially at the end of the training cycle, the drilling phases are more and more like sparring. So you have more positional and micro sparring. Instead of drilling certain moves, you now have more of the application, or application is more important at the end of a training cycle. While drilling, I found that there are 5 key factors that you have to keep in mind when you have your students drill something. When drilling, you can modulate these 5 factors to make the drill or to gear the drill towards a certain goal. So first of all, the first aspect is muscular involvement. So how many muscles are involved, how much of a fine or gross movement is it? So is it something minutia like a grip change, where you just roll your wrist around and grab the other person's sleeve? Or is it more gross movement like a full-on quick Leandro Lowe style knee slide pass, where you go from grip to knee slide to side control in one swift and big motion? Then you have the influence from outside. So is it a closed area that you're working on, like just one limb that you focus on doing something with? Or is it more open? Is it something where you stay within this area, or is it allowed to move into it and move out of that area that you're working on? So are there transitions involved, for example? Then you have continuity. So is it just one move and it's done with the drill? Or is it a series of movements, like going for one pass, then changing for another pass and switching it up again so that you complete the third pass? Or is it a continuous drill where there is no specific starting point and end point to it? If it's something that just continues to go on, like in slow rolling, where you just move on and on and on and on. Then you have the pacing. So is it something where you, as the person who has to do the technique or apply the concept, is the person that actually says how quick you're going through the motions? Or is somebody else either shouting commands so that you have to react to the commands and do things when they are said? Or is the other person simply giving you resistance and by that pressuring you into deciding what to do next? Then you have complexity, which is the aspect that I've talked already quite a lot about in the other videos, as it is usually the one that is most easily to modulate. And this is simply, do you focus on one small aspect, or do you focus on several aspects at the same time? Again, with different layers, as I explained in the first part of this video on a series on methods and drills. Yes, with this we can actually decide on how difficult a drill is. For example, if you go for the knee cut pass, and we do that on a dead body, like a limp noodle, training partner who's giving us all the grips, no resistance, just laying there. It's usually, some muscular involvement, but you don't have to use any strength or intensity, no power, speed. You can go pretty much by your own pace. The other person is not telling you to go now by either giving you reaction or shouting commands at you. You're not influenced by anything but your own body, and it's just one starting point and an end point. You go by getting the grips, then sliding your knee through, you land in side control, that's it. And then you have complexity. It's might be complex because you're doing three things, like getting the grips, getting the underhook, and sliding your knee through, but still there's just 3 steps, and as all the other factors are not really difficult, also the complexity drops with this. If we compare this to the knee cut pass when sparring, it's completely different. That's the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme. Now we have more muscular involvement, there's more going on. You have to push, pull, move left, right, grip fight, do lots of things at the same time. So as you can see, also the complexity is very high because you have lots of things to do. You have influence from the outside because your partner is probably reacting to what you are doing by positioning their body, pummeling, grip fighting, trying to off-balance you. And then you have, it is a continuous thing that's going on. You're probably not going for the knee cut and that's it. You have to first put their hips on the side, then you have to correct grips. Then you have to move your body into their space, dig for the underhook. They are probably trying to do some kind of knee shield thingy or other guard retention, guard recovery movements, which you have to then deal with and maybe switch to another technique. Yes, you can somehow pace it a little bit by simply attacking not too many things at the same time, or you can go really ham on this, like Andrew Wills, I don't know what his name is, from Daisy Fresh, who promotes this buzzsaw passing, where you go from one move to the next, to the next, to the next, until you've passed the person, which also, again, raises the complexity of that drill. As you can see, this buzzsaw passing is very effective because it increases pretty much every factor that there is, but reduces the influence that the opponent has because he has to react and is usually one step behind. And you are also not, you are the one who's giving the pace. That's why it is so, because then it's difficult for the other person to keep up with the complexity, for example, and they don't know when to stop and where to start. So this is why this passing style is quite effective, and this can also be explained with this. So in the end, you can do whatever you want. You can use all the different methods and drills that you know. You can use games where people might not be aware of what they are actually doing. They're just trying to achieve a goal. Like everybody knows this drill where you go for a double leg takedown and you try to just touch their knees. And if you touch the knees, you get a point. They have to defend it. And if you snap them down and they touch your hands on the floor, you get a point as well. By that, they learn how to balance their posture so that they are not too upright, so that you can easily touch their knees, and that they are not too bent forward so that you can snap them down easily. And so they learn how to have a good posture when standing and grappling, standing up. So people are simply not aware of this. You reduced the complexity because you give them certain restrictions, rules for that game. They are not allowed to spin each other around, stuff like that. And you can also increase the complexity by telling them, and now you have to set up people so that they stand upright or come forward, so that you then can set some traps and gain points. Another one is flow rolling or slow rolling. This one is maybe high in complexity, but by reducing the pacing, you can think more about what is going on, and you have a continuous movement. So these things are very high, but because the pacing is low and the muscular involvement, the intensity is low, it is something that is more relaxed and enjoyable to do maybe. Then you have log flows, where you go through certain motions where the other person is either giving you no resistance or specific counter movements which you then try to exploit. This is something that you would use to improve certain motor skills, like getting a bite on a heel when you work on heel hooks. Then you have drilling in general, like progressive drilling, where you can modulate different of these factors, where you increase each aspect here and there. Then you have micro and mini sparring. That would be more intensity, so more muscular involvement. Then you have less, you are more externally paced. The complexity is depending on whether it's micro sparring, mini sparring, positional sparring, or full-on sparring. And you have the most difficult of them all, which is the match, where you have high intensity, unpredictable situation with a full resisting partner, as I explained in the first video, which is the fourth category of sports. So as you can see, depending on which rules you give your students and depending on which of these factors you scale up or down, you can make drilling as difficult or as easy as it is needed for the level of your students. So you have to manipulate the parameters throughout the lesson. So you start closer to the center, so maybe you have just one aspect that is increased, like complexity, and then you let them drill something where they have actually things to decide, and then you add the next layer by giving the partner the option to decide themselves which resistance or which counter they give. And so you increase the different factors one at a time. So you can do whatever you want in your classes. You can use any method you would like to use. All of them are created equal. They all can make sense. It is just important that you make people aware of what you are doing and why they are doing. What is the goal behind the drill? This is again being transparent about your goals in your lesson, and also teaching people to drill correctly for a certain purpose. As I talked about in the video about learning objectives, the second part, we try to reduce the things people learn to one thing per lesson so that they can actually accomplish it and that they can actually improve in that area within this short time frame that one lesson is. And you have to make people aware of the fact that this drilling of one move that is isolated is not representative and is not representing reality. And this is why we have to scale all the factors one by one to level of 6 to 8, which is 60 to 80%, to make them use this against resisting opponents, which is then progressive drilling. That should be part 3 there. I will put another video up where I explain this in more detail.